Our daily chart, you can see we sold off real strongly today, opened on its high and closed almost on its low. We spent a good bit of the day going sideways and had a very late sell-off. And you can see it's found support right at that midline. And this is a 21 EMA line here. The other lines are based on some other stuff. But this center line is our typical 21 EMA that we use on our 2000 tick chart as well. So expect to always find a little support or resistance from that line. That's pretty natural. I will say this closed very bearish and we closed outside the support line here finally. So we'll see. I'm still not ready to say that we've topped out. We do have a break of both channels here and both the gray one and the green one, and a new high in place. And we did make a lower high and are making a lower low here now. So is this just going to be a little two-legged correction to give us some relief from the overbought scenario, or are we going to turn down now? We'll just have to wait and see. You can say that we've met all the conditions for a sell-off, but you don't always get a sell-off. Sometimes prices just go sideways for a little bit, and then the trend will reestablish. Will that happen this time? We'll just have to wait and see. Normally, I'd probably say it looks like we're probably going to get a correction here, but with this market and knowing that we're going into an election this fall, I just have my doubts that they're going to let this thing correct very much. Maybe they'll let it correct a little bit here where they can try to rally it into election time. We'll have to see. But for now, it looks like we're topping out. So at the very least, we'll probably do some sideways act, maybe a correction in sideways, but we could turn down here. We'll just have to see. Like I said, on the daily chart, it's a lot slower because one bar is a whole day, where we might form all these bars in, half hour on a 2000 tick chart. It's going to take a week or two to form those bars. So it moves much slower. It's a lot more difficult. It's not more difficult to read. It's just much slower to read. You can't tell as quickly what's going to happen. So we need more price action to verify this topping. But it certainly looks like we're putting in a top. I will say that. So at the very least. But anyway, let's flip over to our 2000 tick chart. Take a look at it. We'll go through the trades. And we'll wrap this day up. It's going to be a short week because of the Monday holiday, but let's take a look at the 2000 tick chart now. Okay, you can see the really large sell-off here, the break, moved to a new low, and then we went into another flatter channel that just, it did make a break, and I think it makes a new low here, just barely, and then it looks like we're going to rally out of there. But we end up just going flat. They could not breach this. There's some strong resistance right there, about 52, 97, 98, something like that. And prices just could not breach that resistance. And we ended up going into this tight range. Now this is a kind of range you want to see. All the turn downs at the top are very consistent. All the turn downs at the bottom very consistent. So that's the type of range you want to see to trade. There's enough room in there. You get a couple of trends as well. So much easier type range to trade. So, but anyway, let's zoom in, take a look at this chart, and we'll go from there. Okay, we had a trend line working down, and 7 o'clock came as we were making this attempt. Notice we had a close outside, move to a new low, and a lot of times you'll get two legs down, and this looks more sideways than really. You do have a break and a new leg, but a lot of times you'll get two legs down. And we get a triple test here. We're actually making a slightly higher high each time, but when we make this 2-bar matching high in that big bearish bar, and that is a second entry, I think you have to take that trade. It turns out to be a nice move. And if you take that one trade, that may be all you need today. That's the kind of trade you like to see to open up. and that bar opens at 7:23. So if you could catch that, you could be done by 8 o'clock and call it a day and go do whatever you like to do for fun. And that's why we try to do this kind of. That's why we like to learn to do this business, because of the time that it allows us to do the things we want to do, or time to spend with our family or whatever. That's what got me into trading anyway. Chance to make large sums of money without having to work so hard and work for somebody else. But that's a nice move there, and it continues on down. We finally got a break, and like I said, we had a move to a new low right here, and then we rallied out of there. There's a possibility of a long right here. I didn't mark it. Notice there's a new high here, and you do get a first entry, and then it turns lower and turns back up. So that's a second entry. I probably should at least mark that one green. It's a little bit congested, but you can see what's happening here. This channel is played out, and it's probably trapped some shorts there. And the resistance is more right along here, and we did break out first and then go higher. Let me draw a line there just so it's a little bit easier to see. I would call the resistance right across there. And you can see we broke out, tried to go lower twice, so there's a failure there as well on a reversal, and that's where you're looking for a reversal. It is a little congested though, so for that reason I'm going to leave it green, but I like going long right there, to be honest with you. And there's another great move. And if you only caught that one, it's probably all you need for the day. And then we had a really consistent channel here, but unfortunately there's no signal bars except for maybe this one, and you still got this green channel, so I'm a little wary of going short there. And you see what happens. It does get the break, move to a new high, and then turns down, but again, we don't get a signal bar to trade it. There's just no setups here, and so even though it's fairly consistent, this one I would say is a possibility, other than there's no break of the channel. So you pretty much have to skip it, and then you got another channel working lower, and you do get in my opinion, I do think it's a little tighter right there. So you do get a break and a new low all in one bar, and you would expect a failed breakout here. So maybe you take that trade. It's, you're better off to wait on a higher low. But maybe you take that one, and you see once again it just rockets off. So it would have been another great entry if you took it. But you got to be careful with those. Generally, you want a higher low here for a better entry. And of course, this runs up, gets a close outside, and we get a few swings to a new high. This is the one that's a little bit scary here. It's possible somebody got burned on this one, and there's just nothing you can do about that. If you take a chance of picking the high and not waiting on a lower high, that's the kind of thing that can happen to you. Just not much you can do about it. So that's why we always say wait on a lower high. Now we had a lower high here. I didn't mark this one. This is another one you could argue to be green, because that's a lower high, and we do have the break and a couple of swings up now. The problem is it's not a perfect signal bar. It's got a little bit of stem there. Does it close in the lower 1/3? I think it's questionable. I think it's right there at the limit. Probably wait on a lower high, which you get here, and that bar doesn't qualify. You're still a good bit away from the EMA, so you expect prices to at least pull back there. And you can see we kind of got hung up here as prices just went sideways. But finally we make a lower high, or we make this high, and then you make a lower high, and then a failure right here. So there's a new high, first entry, second entry, and it's back inside that original resistance from across there. At this point I was playing the resistance right here, and this was like a failed breakout, and so was this. Now we're back inside, and you can see that resistance line holding in a nice bearish bar. I like going short right there. It's a failure, so it's a little more advanced. I've been just making those green, so I'm probably going to change that to green, because newer traders, inexperienced traders, don't need to be trading those. And so I'm just going to make it green, but I like that trade a lot if you understand reversals. And of course we get a nice trend down, but you don't get any real second. There's a second entry here, but it's not a good setup. And then we bounce. And this is probably a range. I didn't draw it as one. I drew the resistance up here, but you could probably go ahead and draw this range. Oops, clicked on the wrong one. Let's just do that to make it easier to see for everybody. And we'll get rid of the darker line I had there. So you got a new low here. You work up first entry and then second entry. So that's really a second entry short. Plus you got a channel up with a break and a move to a new high. You're way away from the EMA. It's a double top. You might even argue that it's almost this isn't quite high enough to give it a triple test, but you can see we're testing this breakout area, and we tested it a couple of times. I prefer a triple test, so I just marked it green. The triple test comes here, but we don't get a signal bar. That signal bar doesn't qualify. So you do have a triple test here, but I didn't like it because it closes into the midline, and it's very congested looking. I think that's too read. And you see how it fails here momentarily. That's what you expect, but sometimes it will stop you out when it fails and then go higher. So if you took this, it worked, but I think it's very risky. I'm not going to mark it. Again, no signal bar here. Again, we're not quite to the lows here, and you're breaking out down at the low side. And again, it looks a little congested. Wait for the next bar, see if you get a higher low, and then you can see it's just congested, and you probably would have got burned there. I think you would have had a loser there. Yeah, see, it only got 3 ticks. But you could have probably seen what was coming here and maybe gotten out of that with a tick or two and salvaged that trade. But that's hard to do because you know, as soon as you do get out, it goes where you think it's going to go, and if you don't get out, then it ends up stopping you out like here and then going where you thought it was going to go. So most of the time, I'd say just get out of that at scratch or whatever. If you got in there and got stuck in this bar, next bar, try to get out at scratch or give up a tick or so. Don't give up a full stop on that because the odds are the prices are trying to come down here. Especially with that channel, you're going to make a new low, and if you're going to get that close, you're probably going to test these lows here. We do bounce out of there, but again, I don't like that signal bar. That's a nice move. It's a shame that you can't take that trade, but you just can't take it. And notice there's no entries up here until you get a break, move to a new high, and then it turns down. And you can see we pretty much have a triple test up here. This channel's played out, but again, the signal bar is not perfect. Does that close in the lower 1/3? I would say maybe, and I'd probably take that trade until this bar formed and forms an inside bar with a 2-bar matching low. Now it just looks congested. So it's probably congested because of where it's at here at this resistance, but it could still tick lower, move up, and stop you out and then turn down. So I think you just have to skip that trade. Turns out to be another nice move down. You get a break, move to a new low, and then we're just chopping sideways again. And once again, you got some fairly consistent highs and lows here, but you just don't get a good setup. This is a possibility, but again, it has a whole lot of stem there. And you've already got a break in a new low, so I just think you have to skip it. This one is a maybe, but again, it's just such a big bar, and it's an engulfing bar, and I just don't think you want to trade that on the engulfing bar. And by the time it closes down here, it's got too much stem. It ends up being a nice move down with a break and new low. Now this one I marked green because you did test this 3 times. It's a pretty decent bar. It's closed outside, but it's probably going to be a failure. As long as there's room back to the midline there, I'd say probably take that trade. And you can see it just rockets right on back up to the highs again. But again, you don't get this is all too congested. You don't really get a setup to go short. You might argue there's a failure here, but again, that looks too congested. And then finally you get a break here, and there is 2 legs back. Even though that's congested and looks sideways, you can't argue that there's not 2 legs back. So So, and that's back where this resistance is coming across there again too. So it's the first break, very bearish bar. If we break below that, it's probably going to at least come back and test this breakout area, and we'll probably make a new low. And so I like that one. I marked it red. If you see the two legs back. And then this is just all too congested, although we do get a multiple test here of the lows all the way across there. That's very consistent with a nice bar. Go long right there on that one. And you can see it takes off. It was another nice move late in the afternoon. And real easy to get a runner on that. You get a break, new high. And normally I would not mark this bar here. But it's only like one tick difference. And you clearly got a break and a new high. And it's a very bearish bar. If it breaks below that, we're probably coming back to the EMA. So I marked that trade mainly only because it closed. We're right off the previous resistance up here, and it's a very bearish bar. It closes on us very low, way away from the EMA. So you have to take all the context in. On a normal day, that would probably not be I would not mark that one, even green. But because we got such consistency up here, I think you're okay to take that one with a good signal bar there. Even though technically that's not the signal bar, because this other bar makes one tick higher. And so that one tick's not going to make a huge difference there, especially when they got matching lows. If it breaks below that, it's probably coming back to the EMA. Then you can see it bounces at the EMA, comes back. And unfortunately, well, it's after 2:30 anyway, but it would have been nice to get a nice signal bar here if it wasn't after 2:30, because that's a nice move down too. And for once, instead of rallying it into after the close when the low volume, it actually went lower. So we may be topping out here. We may be going to correct. We'll just have to see. But really, for the most part, this entire trading day was just a sideways range. Just a range day, a tight range at that. But it is a very consistent one. Unfortunately, you just didn't get a lot of setups off the support and resistance, but that's the way you want it to look. And if you get a good setup, you got to take it. And that's why I kind of fudged that one a little bit, because it's so consistent and it's a great bearish bar. So anyway, that's how I saw it today. I don't see much else you can say about today. Once we started down from here, you might look for a measured leg, I would say, from there. Of course, we didn't get anything like that, but that's what you might have looked for until it started going sideways. So if we'd kept going lower, you'd look for a measured move there. Just didn't materialize. We mostly just went sideways, but they didn't rally it. We didn't even fill the gap from where it closed the previous day, yesterday. So there it is. Not much else I can say about it, so I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Thursday and wrap up our week. It'll be a short week because of the holiday. But anyway, I hope you had a good trading day. I'll be back again to do this tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.